Last week we watched as Melinda began her journey in having what we call a mummy makeover. Today is part 2 of her transformation. Watch as she gets a tummy tuck and then see her final results here today on The Younger You.
I'm on top of the world, now I'm living, and the good just gets better, keeps on giving. Not even close to the end, it's just beginning. Life is getting lighter while the days are getting brighter, yeah. And it's a good, I won't even worry anymore. Took all my cares, still can kick them all out the door. Go on and try, come and tell me what you're waiting for. Move and keep on going till your life is overflowing, yeah.
Last week we watched as Melinda began her journey to get a mummy makeover. What is a mummy makeover and what do you do commonly in a mummy makeover?
So typically a mommy makeover involves doing both breast and body contouring. There are a few other ancillary procedures that can be done, but in general, it's breast and body. So this patient today has breasts that look completely different. So her right breast is bigger, it's more droopy. So if she came to me and she had 2 breasts that look exactly like her left side, I would just be doing a vertical breast lift augmentation.
I am totally doing this for me. My husband is very supportive and has been a sweetheart to support me in it, but it's more for me.
Melinda's health has made it difficult to grow her family. After taking a chance on having a second child, she is now ready to do a little something for herself, and this is getting a mummy makeover.
There's just things that having kids and having the changes that I've had, that's taken that confidence away.
Melinda's journey didn't start with us. Before meeting Dr. Rose, she lost over 70 pounds on her own. I asked her to tell me if she can remember the exact moment she realised she had to take back control of her weight.
I remember. I actually, as silly as that is, and there's a part of me that gets emotional actually when I think about that day. I finally decided to value myself and value my health and do something about it. I was at home and there was stress going on in my family life. My parents were going through a divorce and that was really hard for my family. And then I got the letter from the doctor kind of explaining the summary of our last appointment, and I was sitting there in my kitchen and I opened the letter and I read that you know, obese on it. And like I said, I went in for something totally different to the doctor, so I wasn't expecting to see something like that at all. And my first instinct was to turn to food, to like make me all better and feel better. And that's when, just sitting in my kitchen, that I realized like I needed to take control of me. And I needed to value myself and where I fit in and have control over that. Maybe I couldn't control some of the other circumstances that were happening in my life, but I could control my own health at that point.
The following footage contains surgical procedures. It may be too graphic for some viewers.
A typical mommy makeover will be a breast lift augmentation, maybe not the lift if they don't need it, and that's nice when you can avoid that. But then a tummy tuck can be anything from a mini to a full to an extended tummy tuck. The extended tummy tuck that I'll be doing today is necessary because the patient has a lot of extra skin even along the side of her body, and if we only remove skin in the front, then it would just make the side look like it didn't go with the front. So there's a gradual tapering effect along the side of the body, even around towards the back, so you get a nice little lift of the lateral hip and thigh, and it makes a huge change. Also, mommy makeovers will typically get some kind of liposuction, most commonly in the flanks or the saddlebags or the inner thighs, for instance.
Yeah, I do realize that it's pretty aggressive, and especially even the tummy tuck that I'll have is a pretty extensive tummy tuck. So yeah, it won't be a fun recovery, but yet again, I deserve it. I've already done the hard work, so this might be a little bit more hard work for a little bit, but then I get to have that praise.
So with a tummy tuck, what we want to do is we want to make an incision that's about 7 centimeters above the upper part of the vulvar cleft, just so that we make sure there's plenty of pubic area so that it doesn't look abnormal. I've seen some where the pubic hair gets pulled up really high, and that's not attractive. And then as the incision approaches lateral, we want to stay slightly outside of the groin crease because there's, again, a lot of blood vessels and lymphatics and important structures, nerves in that area, and there's a zone of adherence where you can't really move much, so the incision will come out this way like that and then go all the way around. So that incision is made first and then it's elevated all the way up to the belly button. The belly button is released, the belly button stays there. We continue to dissect all the way up to the rib cage. All that extra tissue gets removed. And then we also take the vertical muscles, which are called the rectus abdominis muscles, and we close those together. And that's a plication or a narrowing effect. So it's kind of like an internal corset where it takes the circumference of the waist and it forces it closed like this with this vertical plication of permanent stitches that will not dissolve and go away. All that skin gets pulled down like a window shade over the top of the belly button, and then the belly button will pop out through a new space and skin that used to be higher up on the body.
Coming up after the break, we will continue to watch as Melinda gets her tummy tuck.
Like us on Facebook for updates on the show and how to join the Younger You conversation. The following footage contains surgical procedures. It may be too graphic for some viewers.
Let's watch as Dr. Rose concludes Melinda's mummy makeover.
You really shouldn't plan on having a child after a tummy tuck because it will reverse that plication effect of the tightening of the muscles of the abdominal wall, and it'll stretch out the skin again. So yeah, you want to be sure that you're done having kids before you have your mommy makeover. I've had a couple patients actually get pregnant afterwards, and there's actually 4 of them that have had this happen, and 2 of them really needed to have a tummy tuck again, but the other 2 didn't. They just carried their baby a little higher again, almost as if it was the first time that they had had a child. The real critical thing about this type of surgery is that you have to somehow be able to predict what's going to happen on the front with what's happening on the back. So we always start with the patient prone or face down, and we lift the tissue up, and you're tightening it in the front and the sides, and then you have to predict how it's going to work. So you flip the patient over, and then you finish the tightening effect on the front. So it's definitely, it takes a lot of experience, a lot of, good artistic inclination about how it's going to actually come together in the end. Yeah, so the belly button actually stays where it is, but what I do is I make the stock of it shorter, and then, in the old days when I first started 10 years ago, I used to make kind of a bigger belly button and I would just sew it on the outside, but what I've actually come up with is a new technique that I've never seen anybody else do, where you actually suture deeper inside and create a flap on the bottom part so that it can go in, and so the belly button the suturing is clear inside and you have a really hard time seeing it on the outside. Initially I used to make kind of a bigger belly button and I would just sew the skin, I would just sew the skin of the belly button to the skin of the abdomen, but on the outside. And now I've developed a technique which allows me to kind of suture the belly button deeper inside so that the scar isn't as readily apparent on the outside, which is really nice. Okay. All right, so basically I've made this lower incision and I've undermined all the way up to the belly button stalk, which is right here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this lower part so that I can get up in this area easier. One of the things that I've found about fixing the abdominal wall in women is that if you see a patient that really has true diastasis of their muscles, in other words, separation of the muscles, when they try to do a sit-up, you can actually see like the tissue on the inside of the abdomen pushing out between the muscles. And so as they go to the gym and they're doing crunches, for instance, they can see this area kind of poking out in between the muscles. And one of the beautiful things about fixing that is that when the muscles come together and they tone their muscles later, obviously it depends on the thickness of their subcutaneous tissue, but you can actually again see the development of a six-pack if they get in really good shape later on. Because all we're basically doing is just tightening the tissue, pulling it down, the skin I should say, and fat over the muscles, and then repairing the muscles. So then it's up to the patient later on to, get themselves gym ready and be able to actually see the development of a six-pack. Okay, so there's the flap of extra tissue. thing we do struggle with patients like this is the stretch marks in the skin. Because a stretch mark is basically a fracture in the dermis, which is the second layer of the skin. And when you're suturing, you gotta have the dermis to suture, and so the stretch mark just makes that a lot harder to stitch. So that's just the temporary deeper closure, and then we'll refine that further with a superficial running stitch. So most patients will have some discomfort and they'll be lying around and they won't really be too mobile for a week. After that week is up, they'll be more and more mobile, they can move around. After about 3 weeks, a lot of patients actually can even go back to work at that point. We do limit their activity for a full 6 to 8 weeks as far as exercise and that kind of thing. And you can't do any really aggressive core work for about 8 to 10 weeks because of the stitches that help repair the abdominal muscles. Okay, final suturing of the belly button, and then we're done.
Melinda has been going through a lot after having 2 kids, losing 70 pounds, getting a breast lift and a tummy tuck. She's ready to reveal her new self. Coming up after the break, we'll get to see Melinda's final results, and of course we get to meet her husband Russ and talk all about her new transformation. Be sure to head over to theyounger.you.tv to stay up to date with all things Younger You. Before we find out how Melinda feels about her mummy makeover, let's take a look at her transformation. I have Melinda and her husband Russ in the studio with me, of course, with Dr. Rose. How are you guys?
Good. Good.
You're good? You're hyped.
I am.
I remember the conversation that you and I had when you first decided to go down this road. Was it everything that you thought it would be?
And better.
Really?
Yeah. No, I'm very happy with it.
Don't brag just because Dr. Rose is here. What was better?
Well, I think it's just a pretty impressive story that she's been able to go through and do. I was glad to be able to be a partner with her in this as she went through the experiences, the ups and the downs, but it's definitely ended on a high. So it's fun for her, and I'm very proud of her.
Okay, when she came to you and you said, Russ, darling. I don't know whether you said it like that.
Yes, exactly.
Russ, darling, I want to have this done. I want a mummy makeover.
Right.
Were you like, go for it, gal, or I don't know?
Well, it's interesting.
Let's be honest.
Well, we talked about it a lot years ago, but it wasn't actually until she had this dramatic makeover that she took upon herself and lost all this weight, and it got to the point where we kind of essentially had no other route, and she really did a great job on losing all that weight, and Dr. Rose did a great job on finishing it off, putting the cherry on the top.
It's not often that husbands are so supportive off the bat, are they?
Correct.
Truly, because they also think the money.
Oh, number one.
One of the, thank you. I'm glad you said it so I don't get in trouble for it. And two, that most of them think you're right, you're okay the way you are, everything's all right. But it's about the woman and what she's feeling on the inside.
Well, this is my first time hearing that. A lot of times I don't really get to hear what the husbands think afterwards. I see the patients, themselves afterwards, and I don't get to hear that. But that's exactly what I like to hear from a husband, is that kind of positive energy. Considering your journey and the story that you've shared with us already, I want to now start touching on some of the procedures. Okay. You said that you didn't want big breasts.
No.
To begin with. So I'm going to say you didn't want a Dolly Parton.
No.
Okay. What size were you before the operation? Just remind all our viewers at home.
I was a 38D.
Okay. And you are now?
30-60.
Okay. What do you suggest? Is this the normal range that you would like to do on most patients?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you do a breast lift and an implant at the same time, when a patient tells me that they want to stay about the same, then I have to just gauge, you know, the dimension of the implant, the volume of the implant, and how much tissue you remove during the breast lift.
Was there anything frightening when he was talking to you about having the mummy makeover? Because I look at it and everyone's going to be sitting at home and think there are concerns at some point that go through your mind.
Yeah, I think my concern was, yet again, it's elective. You're going in for surgery and it's an extensive surgery. The risks, the infection, the problems that can happen, and my goal is to be home with my kids and continue my lifestyle that way. So I think that was my biggest risk of going down that path.
What did Dr. Rose say that alleviated those thoughts from you?
I think it's just the confidence that I had in him. As I went in and I visited with him and stuff like that, it eliminated the worry that that's not a likelihood of happening.
Okay. You're okay with no more children?
We kind of have to be. She had some situations that she went through, and so that we aren't able to have any more children. So it was an ideal time for us where we can go through and, you know, enjoy, you know, years now without having to, you know, worry about that.
Did you realize that you can flatten the stomach not actually having surgery?
Now you tell me.
I want to show everyone at home some quick little exercises that you can do to help flatten your tummy.
This exercise is the V-up. It targets the upper abdominals. You would pinch at your hips and try to touch your toes without any use of momentum. Breathe in at the top and exhale at the bottom. To make it harder, lower your legs to the ground and hinge all the way up, trying to touch your toes. You would do 3 sets of 10 reps.
This exercise is called the side plank. This exercise is for the total core, abs, obliques, and internal core muscles. You would stagger your legs for better balance and stability. Make sure to keep a straight and neutral spine and don't sag your hips. To make it harder, you would stack your feet. Take the extended arm and tuck it under your torso, twisting your body, and then raising your arm back up. Hold the easy version 30 to 60 seconds. For the hard version, do 10 to 20 reps per side. This is called a side plank with a dip. This exercise targets the core, low back, and the obliques. For the easy version, you would dip your hips, almost touching the ground. Then return to a neutral spine position. For a harder version, you would touch your elbow to your knee in a crunching fashion, and then dip your hip immediately afterwards. Start with 3 sets of 10 to 20 reps.
When we come back, we'll continue to talk about Melinda's results. Let's find out a little bit more about how Melinda and Russ, her husband, feel about the final results. Russ, I'm going to ask you what every bloke is sitting at home thinking. What was your favourite part of the procedure? Now it's done.
Right. Well,
and be honest.
I will be honest. I will say this though first, that she absolutely means everything to me. You know, so for her happiness, for her joy, to be able to get to the point that she wants to get, she's done a tremendous amount of work. So number one, she absolutely looks beautiful, completely gorgeous. You know, from a husband and a relationship standpoint, it gives us an opportunity to really strengthen that relationship.
Wow.
She looks wonderful, she looks great, and she did before. But the reality is, her confidence now is so much more dramatic. And as a true partnership in this marriage, we get to be able to, you know, have fun and live life together, right?
Talk about 100 points for the husband. Are you sitting there? I'm sitting there thinking, wish I had a husband like that. As every woman at home would be too.
He's a good
One
guy.
lucky chick, Melinda. Good on you.
I know. I did it.
I wanted to ask you, Dr. Rose, because people are sitting at home thinking expectations, and you can all jump in on this. Melinda, did you get your expectations? Did you reach them?
You know, I didn't have expectations going into it.
Nice.
There wasn't a set number that I wanted to achieve or a size that I was going for. It was more the way I looked. I didn't like the way I looked.
Okay.
So I think my expectations were a lot higher, actually.
Okay. You succeeded.
Oh, yes.
Above and beyond what you ever thought would happen.
Yes, yes.
What are you going to do, Melinda, to keep this body you now have?
I love doing yoga. That is like my favoriteest thing. So I enjoy doing yoga and that, and then just watching what I eat and how much I take in and how much I burn off.
How important is it, Russ, for you to step in and help Melinda maintain her goals? Do you think it's really important for you as a partner?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those other opportunities that we get to spend together as a unit. And the fact of the matter is for a long time, I did activities, triathlons, ran and raced and bike, and I kind of gotten away from that as she's kind of stepped up her game, essentially. And so she's inspiring me now to really get back into it.
That was my next question, because super hot. You look amazing. You really do.
Thank you.
And considering the health concerns that you had, the weight you've lost, does it make you kick into overdrive now? I know it would for me. If I was sitting here and you were my wife and I was a few pounds over, does it make you now want to do more for yourself? And I don't like to use this word, keep up, but for you to be the best you can be.
You know what, Troy? The funny thing you say that is she's laughing because she knows what I'm going to say, is that there's been more times now as we've been sitting, getting ready for bed, that I look down, man, I got to do something, you know? I realize that I've got to really step it up, so
we need a daddy makeover. you should pen that, a daddy makeover. Can we do such a thing?
We can do those. It's just not as complicated.
What would you consider doing?
You know, I think first of all, I just got to get my lifestyle back in the swing that she is. You know,
I'm trying to put you under the knife.
You are. I think I'm okay. I'd probably need Dr. Rose's expertise to look at me and say, you know, this is what you need.
Okay, but does that impress you to think, wow, my husband wants to look better as well. He wants to feel better.
You know, the funny thing is I felt like for a while we didn't match. I felt like he had the lifestyle, his appearance, and I wasn't there. So
wow.
I just like that at this point, I feel like we match.
I didn't know you felt like that.
Yeah.
We hadn't talked about that.
Oh.
Okay. This is a question from a viewer for you. All right, and I think it's an important one. Dr. Rose, can someone have a second tummy tuck if needed? A second tummy tuck?
I've had patients have a tummy tuck, get pregnant, and then have another one. So it's possible, but you know, I've had a few others that got pregnant after a tummy tuck and they didn't even need another one.
Okay. What do you say to people sitting at home watching you? I wanted to say another word and I pulled back. What do you say to them watching you right now and maybe considering it for themselves?
I think that's exactly it. They have to decide for themselves. I don't think you can't judge off of my results or somebody else's results or what a friend or a spouse or somebody wants to do. I think it comes down to I am happy I did it for myself. I am grateful for the results and I look forward to maintaining them.
Well, I think you look amazing. And I'm so impressed by you, Russ, coming on and being part of the story as well. Dr. Rose, an incredible journey. I think you are amazing. You did a fantastic job. Thank you all for sharing your story. Having kids can change a woman's body dramatically, but being a mum doesn't mean you can't look and feel beautiful. For more information about the show, head over to theyongeryou.tv, and of course you'll get all the information there about Dr. Rose as well. I'll see you next week. Coming up on the next episode of The Younger You, we're delving into the world of men's health and to find out why statistically men live shorter lives than women. The Younger You set provided by Madison Record Interiors.